We're back home after a few months away, still sorting. I'm in the schoolroom here. Why chesed channel? Why stories to exalt God? First Chronicles chapter 16, verses 8 through 12. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the people. Sing to him, sing psalms to him, talk of all his wondrous works. Glory in his holy name. Let the hearts of those rejoice who seek the Lord. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his face evermore. Remember his marvelous works which he has done, his wonders and the judgments of his mouth. I just love this passage. Give thanks, call on his name, make known his deeds. Sing, talk of his wondrous works, glory in him. Let your heart rejoice. Remember the marvelous works which he has done. There's something really powerful about testimonies, stories that exalt God. And the reason we call our channel Chesed Channel is because chesed is the Old Testament word for, I'm probably not pronouncing it right because I don't speak Hebrew, but the Chesed Channel is for, it's the unfailing love of God. Sometimes it's translated loving kindness or tender mercies, but it's that unfailingness about it, so it differentiates it from other types of love. And really that's what these amazing God stories all have their source in. Their foundation comes from God's love for us. And I think everyone, even unsaved people, have stories that exalt God in their life. Why? Because God is always working in our lives. If we are saved, he's bringing us to know him better and to walk in the destiny that he's prepared for us, that he's given us gifts and talents for and life experiences for, to kind of funnel us into these good works that he's prepared for us to walk in. And so he's got that going on, so he's working in our life. But unsaved people who don't know the Lord yet, he's working in their life too to bring them to know him, because that's his goal for us. He made us in his image, and we are to be for the praise of his glory. And we find our greatest joy and fulfillment in him when we're in that destiny. Anyway, so that's why the stories, and that's why Chesed Channel. And this is our family's teeny tiny contribution to the conversation about how awesome God is. And so I wanted to say that looking at these books here in the schoolroom, I was thinking that I actually came to know the Lord through a booklet. I had a skydiving accident. I had been a professional chef. I worked for 4 seasons in Las Colinas. It was a master plan community, water taxis in the canals, and a helipad for important people to fly in and stuff. It was really neat, and my goal in life was making money. But I had the skydiving accident, and I couldn't even walk or stand for a while, so the lady in HR was a friend of mine, and she got me a job where I could sit all day. And in that office, there was a born-again Christian, and I had never heard of a born-again Christian, didn't know what that was. I was Catholic, so I didn't know what born-again meant. But she really impressed me. Her life impressed me, and I wanted to know what made this lady tick, because I kind of envied her peace and her joy and, her whole way of living. But I was too afraid to ask her about it. So she was messy, though. She left these little booklets around the office. I would come later to find out that those are called tracts. But anyway, there's this one booklet from Radio Bible class called Born Again, What's It All About? And that's what I wanted to know, so I stole the book to find out about God. So I often tell people, don't make your coworkers steal, just tell them. But anyway, that's what I did. And when I went home and read the verses, it was the first time that I had ever heard the gospel, was through those verses in that booklet. And I gave my life to Christ. And then started reading the Bible. So I got saved through a booklet, then started reading the Bible, the greatest book. And through that started to get to know God's ways and his word and his works and his character and how he thinks and how he does, and getting to know him. But I would have to say that after the Bible, the most influential effect on my Christian walk and my worldview has been stories. It's been other people's testimonies, and usually in the form of books. Gladys Aylward, Hudson Taylor, Amy Carmichael. I mean, there's all the big famous names of missionaries. I read all the missionary biographies that I could get my hands on. But then there were guys like Don Richardson. Y'all probably know about Peace Child, but did you know he also wrote other books? Lords of the Earth, fantastic story. Eternity in Their Hearts. Practically every chapter is a different culture and how God has allowed keys to be in every culture to help unlock people's understanding of him and bring them to himself. Britchko, a teenager who basically, teenager or young adult, who came to know the Lord, decides to go out to a jungle to tell the natives and finds out that he fulfilled a legend that they've had for as long as any of them can remember. This is kind of funny title, Commandos for Christ. Funny title, but very serious, like E5 level type mission situation where these missionaries were working amongst headhunting cannibals. But this one male missionary was attacked by a group of these warriors at one point, and they started shooting him full of arrows. But he stood there, and every time they shot him with an arrow, he would rip it out of his own flesh and break it and throw it on the ground. So they kept shooting him, and he kept ripping out the arrows and breaking them, and he has this pile of arrows going on, and they start to get scared because they started to think they couldn't kill him. They started to wonder, is this guy even human? First of all, he's got this ugly white skin, which makes him look sort of supernatural. Secondly, he's not dying from the arrows. What's going on here? So that was he wound up passing away finally. But it was so long and drawn out and dramatic that the whole group was affected. They wouldn't even eat his flesh because they were so afraid of, who is this guy? And that wound up opening their hearts to listen to the message from other missionaries when they finally heard the gospel and came to know the Lord. Incredible stories, incredible. God's smuggler. I read this with the kids when they were teenagers for the first time in my life, but I thought that was amazing. Vanya read this later when they were adults. That's just a few, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens. But it's the idea of ordinary people walking with an extraordinary God and how he shows up in their lives and does these amazing things that cause their faith to soar and their hearts to be full of joy, causes his word to spread, his son to be glorified. And everybody wins, right? I just love amazing God stories. It's like if I don't have anything happening in my life, I don't see answers to prayer, I'm going through a dry spell, nothing's happening with the kids. If you come over for coffee and you tell me what's going on in your life and you've got a God story, I can go for weeks. I can float for a long time on a really good, amazing God story. So it's kind of like my lifeblood. And I think it's like that for a lot of us because, did I already share that verse? I can't remember if I already said it about in Revelation, where they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. It's their testimony. Not his or her testimony, but their testimony. And so as we share them, I think it really inspires our faith. Because I can share a verse with you, but if I share a verse and show how God performed the verse in my life or the life of someone we know, just ordinary people, it's doubly encouraging. So you've got the living word, and then you've got how it's lived out in regular lives. So that's why the Chesed channel. And so I'm sitting here looking at these books, and I was wanting to tell you how we instilled in our kids this worldview to see God at work in their lives. Because like I said, he always is, but we don't always see it. And so, for example, when our first two were little, they're grown-ups now, and then we had a third child. Our midlife surprise is Tila, and she's only 10. But when the first two were little, we had a lot of financial need. And so we would run out of money every third week of the month, and then we'd have to pray for everything. So the kids, the first two, Ben and Grace, got to see God supply literally their daily bread, clothes on their backs, shoes on their feet, school tuitions, birthday stuff, tickets to go do things that other kids were doing, medical needs. You name it, they got to see God provide it. And so that really built their faith. But in addition to what was going on in their own lives, I would read them stories, and when they were really little, I would just read excerpts. Like I'd find a story, I'd be reading this biography, and I'd get to a story that was really cool, and then at lunch I would share it because I eat faster than the family. So I would finish eating, and then I'd whip out the book, and then I would read at the table. And then when they got older, we'd read the entire book together. We'd have, like, after lunch, we'd go have coffee and tea and go sit in the living room, and I'd read aloud to the whole family, and we'd all talk about it and comment and things, and it would inspire all of us. So that was really neat. But then we realized just a few months, not even a few months, it might have, a couple months ago, we were Yeah, we were making our trip from the east coast of the USA out to Kansas. We had one more relative to visit before going home. We were going to go see Aunt Becky and Uncle Denny. And so we start out on this trip, and the thing was that spring had sprung in America. And I mean, the snow was gone. We didn't have to wear our winter coats. It was green. There were flowers. The air smelled fantastic. And we're driving along, cooped up in the car, and Tila kept asking every half hour, "Can we get out and run around? I just want to run around. It's so nice out. I want to play. I want to run. I want to go on a swing." And so I'm thinking, oh well, you can't even pull off the road here. I mean, you just got the shoulder, and then there's kind of like nothing but forest or a cliff or whatever there was, and so there was no appropriate place, and the exits were like hotels and fast food places. So I had no idea where to find a park, sitting in this car. But then God reminded me, ding, um, Tila's not been having the opportunity to see these answers to prayer, and so I thought, well, here's an opportunity. Here's something she really desires that I can't meet her need, and we don't know how to do it. So let's ask the Lord. So I said, well, let's pray. And so she prayed and asked God for a place to run around that had grass and that had swings that she could go on, so she could get her action out. And then I prayed and agreed with her, and I tacked on a little prayer for me, because we had traveled, I don't know how many stops we had made from North Carolina all the way up to Maine, and then down to New Jersey and across to Pennsylvania, and now we're heading out to Kansas, and all of the bathrooms had been, gas station bathrooms. And so I just tacked a little prayer on there at the end and asked the Lord for a clean bathroom. So Bill says, well, we're getting off at the next exit because you need to go to the bathroom, and we'll ask if there's a park. So we get off and we, use the bathroom, and I could not believe it. I felt like asking the lady who ran the place, did my grandmother come here and clean your bathrooms for you? Because, I mean, yes, it was that clean. An Italian grandmother's level of meticulous. Remember, Grandma used to say, oh my God, immaculate, immaculate. It was just like Grandma Mary would have cleaned it. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it was a gas station bathroom. So that was a definite answer to prayer. But that one didn't mean much to Tila. So at the cash register, we're paying for our snacks, and we asked the lady, are there any parks around here? And she said, yeah, there's one just a mile up the road. We're like, a mile up the road? Seriously? That close? There's a park to an exit? So we drove up the road, and it wasn't even just a park, like some little, rest stop or something. It was ball fields, hiking, walking, biking trails, hills, flowers growing, blowing in the breeze. And you could have filmed a 1960s hippie commercial with all the daisies, and there was a covered bridge with a stream running under it. We got to throw pebbles and sticks in the stream and watch the sticks float away. It was great. And there were 2 sets, not one, but 2 sets of swings. So she had her prayer royally answered. Well, that was great. But to instill into her that, it wasn't just that we prayed and it worked out. No, it didn't just work out. God answered prayer. To instill that in her, we repeated it to her. When we got in the car, I said, hey, God really answered your prayer. What did you pray for? And she said what she prayed for. I said, that's right. And what did he give you? And she said, well, it was even more than she asked for. And so then later on, we were on the phone with Grandma. Okay, hey, Grandma, Tila had an amazing answer to prayer today. And so then we repeated it in Tila's hearing, and she was delighted that, we were talking about this thing that God had done for her, but it instilled in her to realize, to remember, and to kind of make a big deal about it to yourself that, yeah, God answered this prayer, because that's what helps to formulate that view, to see God in our lives. So anyway, so it goes along with this verse that I read about remember, talk about what he's done, remember his wondrous works, sing about it, and how many times in scripture we're commanded, tell your children, tell your grandchildren, remember, tell. Yeah. So anyway, that's why we have the Chesed channel, and that's the kind of stories that we would like to share.